So let's talk about the iPhone Air.
Now everybody scream enough respect to the X. Enough respect given.
Apple did their annual hardware reveal. Well, it was last week, as at the time of this recording, and yes, they talked about new earbuds and new watches and new software and of course new phones. Now, I'm only going to touch on the other devices. My main focus is going to be on the iPhone Air because that is the one that is of interest to me. The rest, can't say I really care. But it is to at least point out some of the features that these other devices have that may be of interest to you. So, new AirPods, they have a new silicone tip. They say they fit better. They cancel out twice as much noise during noise canceling, and they have a heart rate monitor in them. Not sure how that works, but I was surprised when the smartwatch got a heart rate monitor. I guess no, the pulse, whatever. It is what it is. The Apple Watch, there's a new version to every version of it. So the SE, the regular, and the Pro. I don't have an Apple Watch. Again, more of a rounded watch type of guy as far as watches go. They did have a nice purple band with a black frame. I'm not sure how new or old that might be, but that one did catch my eye. Not even sure which one that was. Pretty sure it wasn't the Pro, because the Pro was kind of bulky with buttons on the side. This one was way more slick. But new watch. From what I understand, you can now do the satellite link to send messages and make calls, not just when it's an emergency, but pretty much whenever you want, I guess. And yeah, that's all I can remember that was significantly new. Well, I think better battery life across the board. Maybe I think the screen is a little bigger as well. I'm thinking it's all from memory, so feel free to leave a comment if I get something wrong. Next thing was, yeah, the phones. That was pretty much it. Wasn't a new iPad, was it? No, there was not. It was just AirPods, watch, and phone. I guess all of their more mobile devices. So, quick touch on the regular iPhone 17. It's an iPhone. That's all I can say. Better front-facing camera. It does this cool widescreen thing now, using AI to determine if you need a narrow field of vision or a more wide field of vision to hold everyone you're trying to get into the shot. Better battery. It's finally 120 hertz on the regular phones, so pretty good deal if you were coming from any previous regular iPhone. This one is going to seem leaps and bounds beyond anything you used before. Just the screen refresh rate alone makes it seem that way. Then there's the Pro and the Pro Max. Pro is the same size as the regular quote-unquote iPhone. The Pro Max is a bit bigger, of course, more cameras on the back. I'm not a big camera guy, so except for the front-facing camera thing, which that is kind of cool. Yeah, better cameras as always. I know there was a lot of talk about being able to shoot in ProLog and RAW. I don't know what those terms really mean as far as photography goes, but if you are into photography and that means anything to you, these cameras can apparently do it very well. The new design, they went from titanium back to aluminum, when just a few years ago titanium was the material to use. Now I guess it's not. That fad came and went. I do have to say that there is an orange color to the Pro that catches my eye, not because I am an orange person, but because it's such a unique color when it comes to mobile phones. It kind of reminds me of those blocks in Super Mario Brothers, and when he hits it, it can no longer provide him coins. It just turns to that orange little block. That's pretty much what I see this orange one as. There's a white-ish color, and then there's a dark blue. Surprisingly, no black, as the Pros always came in black before, and no purple. So as far as colors go, I care very little. The Mario block color, that one had my interest only slightly because, again, Mario, that's kind of different. So with that out of the way, let's talk about what I want to talk about, the iPhone Air. Now, the iPhone Air is Apple's answer to the Samsung Edge. Or maybe the Edge was the answer to the Air, because the Air has been leaked for so long now that if you had the ability, you could actually bring your slimmer phone to market before Apple, and that might have been the case with the Edge. The Air is 5.6 millimeters thin, a little bit thinner than the Edge based on the numbers. I don't really think you would see that slight difference if you held both in the hand. We'll have to test out for ourselves. I think it's a 6.7 inch screen. Well, let me not go into detailed numbers that I honestly don't remember. But I know the Air sits between the regular size iPhones, whatever screen size those are, and the Max. So it's a little bigger than the regular, but not as big as the Max. So if you find the regular screen a little too small and Max is just too large to wield properly, you can go with an Air and be right between the two. I guess, the Air would be considered the plus size of the devices, because there actually is no plus phone this year. Now, from what I've read of the Air, there is a little, what they call a camera plateau. It's a little smooth bump that comes on the back of it. Kind of like there was I think a Moto roll phone from years back that had a very similar design, except that one was modular. So you could snap things on the back to get other features to it. But the point is, it had a little bump at the top, and that's where most of the innards of the device are, and currently with the Air is. The rest of the body is pretty much used for battery, from what they say. To get something that slim and have it not die in the first 2 or 3 hours, they have to maximize space on the inside to get to last any kind of acceptable amount of time. There's only one speaker on it, and that is up top. Now, the speaker probably is a stereo speaker, because if you do remember back in the day, phones didn't always have the speaker alongside the earpiece of the phone. The speakers were normally two cutouts at the bottom. All of your sound came from the bottom of the phone. The Air has no speakers down there. It's simply a mic. The top is where the speaker, I assume, stereo sound will be coming from there. So I don't think it'll sound as full as other devices, because even with stereo sound not coming from both ends of the phone, it's kind of going to be or sound-wise, it's going to seem pretty one-sided, no matter how you put it. Of course, it has the 120 Hz refresh rate, so that's a plus. So across the line, all of the iPhones don't have what they call Pro Motion. I mean, Android has had that forever, but iPhone has finally caught up. No SIM tray in any region. No SIM tray. With the 14, 15, 16, hell, even with the 17, as far as I know, the US had no SIM tray, but in other regions of the world, the phone did come with a SIM tray, but the iPhone Air, no matter where you buy it, no SIM tray at all. That was all used for battery. I find that kind of not odd, but interesting, because with the Samsung Edge, there is a SIM tray, and it's not much thicker than the iPhone Air. Like I said, 0.2 millimeters if my numbers are correct. Now, I don't know how thin a SIM card and SIM tray are. Maybe that 0.2 is the amount of space required to include that. But I think if iPhone really wanted to, they could have. It might be one of those, for the sake of the carriers and for Apple themselves, keeping things on an eSIM makes it harder for you to switch back and forth between their phone and another phone. Me personally, I prefer physical SIMs because I swap phones weekly. On iPhones I use for the weekend, iPhones that I use for the week, iPhones that I use when I'm going on a walk, iPhones when I'm going for a weekend vacation. The phones I use when I just want to have fun with the phone and test it and make a video. And being able to just easily swap my main SIM to whatever my main phone is going to be at that time is just that much more convenient, as opposed to having to call up whatever my carrier might be and to say, hey, I want to swap this number eSIM to this phone. Though I'm sure it doesn't take very long, a few minutes at most. A few minutes is still a lot longer than a few seconds when it comes to a physical SIM card swap. So there is that to be aware of. They claim all-day battery on the Air. Great. They always say all-day batteries. I guess it's dependent on how long your particular day is, because not long after they said all-day battery on the Air, they announced a MagSafe battery pack specifically made for the Air, the curvature and all, to extend the battery life to the same amount of time as an iPhone Pro Max or iPhone 17 Pro Max. So that should tell you something right there. All-day battery on the Air is not the same as all-day battery on one of the higher-end phones with the much larger battery packs inside. But being that the Air is more of a status piece, is what I call it. It's not really made to do all of the, or to handle the workloads a lot of these phones can do. You're not going to be doing your professional photography. That's what the pros are for. You're not going to use it on a regular basis like a regular iPhone, doing all of the everyday stuff that people do with their phones, not for as long, because it probably won't last. It's just not made for that. It's made to say, hey, I have a very slim device that's very pretty. It can do some of what the other phones do, but if I push it too hard, there's a good chance it will die that much faster and might just overheat. That's another thing. The newer phones, at least as far as I know, the Pro models have a vapor sink. I think that's what they call it, which kind of draws in the heat and sends it out, so that the phone doesn't overheat while doing gaming or whatever a more extraneous act you may be performing on the phone. The Air doesn't have that, but it still has the same chip, the A19 Pro or something. It's an A19 chip, same chip in the other phones. I think it's the same chip as in the Pro model. And if that Pro model needs that vapor sink to dissipate the heat coming off of that chip, I'm not exactly sure how the Air is going to handle that. So it is to think about it. But yeah, the Air is the more interesting of the phones that came out this year by Apple. No purple, but there's a very nice kind of light blue, very similar to the color that I had with my Edge. So that will be the color that I try to get for myself, because though I'm not a big Apple fan, I do want to experience what it's like to use the Air and compare it to the Edge. It's just what I like to do. No purple, kind of sucks, but I'm sure that there'll be a case, which would defeat the whole purpose of an Air, or a skin, which would probably fare much better in keeping the slim physique of the Air with more protection and a new color. So yeah, probably look for a nice little purple skin for it, and we'll go from there. So price wise, the Air is $1,000, which is surprisingly cheaper than the price of the Edge when it was announced. But then again, the Edge has a lot more going for it. It has 2 cameras, not 1. The Edge has the SIM card tray. I know that's not a feature, quote unquote, but to some like me, it is an important feature to have. The Edge has access to Samsung DeX and all of One UI 8 and all those AI features. So when you compare what you get with the two, the Edge is a more fleshed out device, much more functional overall. The Air, it's an iPhone, and depending on how you feel about that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So with that said, my name is NG, the Neonex, and interested in this line of new iPhones and Apple devices. This is what I'm into.